I think one of my earliest impersonations was Jesse Ventura, because he was he used to commentate wrestling with Gorilla Monsoon. So he had these sayings like, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, Monsoon. I'll give credit where credit is due. And I was like 10 going, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, Monsoon, but that's me doing an impression of me at 10, doing an impression of Jesse Ventura. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Wait. Woo! Yeah, which one is that? That's a Spinal Tap.
So, what would if you had to do a review of Spinal Tap as Jesse Ventura, how would that look like?
I'll give credit where credit is due. This movie hits. This movie explodes on the scene like a hand grenade, Monsoon. And I would know because I was a Navy SEAL. I was a frogman. I can hold my breath underwater for the first act of the movie, which is hard to discern because it's a documentary that's wild and rambling with a through line of a story mostly centering around the relationship between Nigel Tufnell and Dennis St. Hubbins.
Wow.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. So what? I think I see you a lot of times, and I feel like you are loud. Do you turn yourself to 11 a lot?
Yeah, I think the comedy, the louder you get, the more people have to pay attention to you. Actually, going all the way up, all across the board, going to 11, I think is important in comedy sometimes.
Right.
I also like to keep it very quiet, like Nigel Tufnell's Love Pump. Just, simple notes intertwining on the piano. Sometimes I look at my my instrument as an actor, as a piano meant to play ballads, to give a yin to the yang of the loud comedy. When you put them all together, you have something, a masterpiece like Spinal Tap. Far be it from me to say that I've come anywhere close, but you will continue to strive with your instruments, just like this. Being loud is important in comedy. Doing things in threes, I've heard.
Yeah.
Hard C sounds, hard K sounds. And it's important to have those guidelines first.
And why don't you do stand-up?
Why don't I do stand-up?
Yeah, so funny.
Oh, cheers. I appreciate it. I don't know. I just never got into stand-up at a point when, it's interesting. First of all, I should say I have a great respect for stand-up. I grew up with a bunch of the, classic comedy albums like Steve Martin, Wild and Crazy Guy. We had Gilda Live. We had a bunch of Robert Klein, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Robin Williams. We had the stuff, and I love that stuff. I think that I was really fascinated early with the illusion of, TV, film, and the like. So, standing up in front of an audience and being the only one delivering the comedy was just not, I don't know, it's just not my thing. And I think this is kind of a cheap answer, but it's true. It's like, and then, I moved down here. I'm from Canada. And I moved down here. I'm in LA. And then I'm doing a sketch show, Mad TV, and doing other things. And pretty soon you're in your late 20s, you're turning 30, and you're like, I'm not going to just start doing stand-up. And, I'll be honest, I kind of feel like, well, maybe I should have, but it's like, I kind of felt like it would have been a cheap thing, because I think that, real stand-up and finding your voice as a stand-up is something that comes with being in the clubs, coming up from being the guy that has to fit in where you can, try to
Right.
get stage time. And we all know, if fans of comedy out there, or if you do stand up, you know more than some actor like me that it's all about applying your wares and honing your craft. And I think that's how and I say I think because I don't know, you come up with a thing, find out who you are, find out what your voice is, find out what your sensibilities are, your sense of humor, what you want to keep, what you want to leave behind. And I think that when actors get into it sideways, or any other performer gets into stand-up sideways, it's more of just a performance.
Yeah.
And so it never really appealed to me like that, because it wasn't really natural. Now, I love goofing around and stuff.
Right.
I loved doing the sketch show that I did. I do podcasts and stuff. I have a podcast and stuff like that where it's just silly, willy-nilly. I get to do whatever. And I love just goofing around like that. I would love to do more stuff live and on stage. But I've never let go of the feeling and the thought that it would be a cop-out to just be like, hey, I mean, I'm almost 50 years old. To be like,
Right.
Stand up now. My good pal Bobby Lee, whom you know very well.
Yeah.
I met Bobby. It was his first year on Mad TV, and it was my last. And Bobby had been doing stand up for a number of years at that point. As we became friends, he's like, "Why aren't you doing stand up?" And I would give him the same rap I'm giving you. And he became disinterested with it. Well, you're an idiot. Yeah, you're
Right.
a moron. You don't deserve to do stand up. Screw you. And then he was hard to get a hold of.
Yeah.
And you know that with Bobby, it's hard to get a hold of. He doesn't like to answer the phone. He doesn't like to
Definitely.
He doesn't like to empty his voicemail. He doesn't like to call you back. He doesn't like to
Yeah. He's a
return texts.
particular character for sure.
Yeah, super duper hard to get a hold of. But when we have talked about it, he's one of my very few friends who are stand-ups, and then stand-ups who have asked me about,
Right.
So let me say this, after rambling way too long, when all you asked was, why don't you do stand-up? This is the last thing I'd like to say about it. It's like, I would love to do more stuff on stage. I really just feel like, and I love doing it. Anytime, I just did a live show with my podcast, What a Gas. And we did it in a comedy club.
Yeah.
We were down at Brea, and our people, our incredible audience of our podcast, of Dudesy, this show that we do.
Yeah.
They showed up. We sold the place out. It was loose. We get to kind of, here's the...
Yeah. Get the reaction.
Yeah,
All that.
I loved it. I
Yeah.
loved it. I would love to do more things, and not to sound like a real comedy nerd, but I've talked to other people who are like, I know people who were in sketch shows and stuff, and they go, well, I don't do straight stand-up. I do some stand-up. I do a monologue, and then I do a weird song, and then I do some crowd work, and then I do another monologue, and then I do a character. And that sounds appealing, but I don't know. I guess
Yeah.
I'm busy.
Yeah. No, you are.